everywhere. We are live everywhere. Hello, hello, hello.
Everywhere.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey. Well, it's
Hi.
like we never went anywhere. Have you been
It
anywhere
is.
interesting since last week?
Um, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I was in
Say
Texas,
less.
but this ain't Texas. No, we are in I don't know
Boots on the ground.
ground. I literally got a boot on the ground right now to put a boot on my foot because
She
we
got a boot on the ground, y'all. A literal
wow,
boot.
a literal boot, man.
Because of boots on the ground. Texas is too big to walk the whole state, and yet somehow it seemed like we did, including the water. We walked on the water. The water walked on us.
Yo, I'm still recovering, but good morning to you. Hi.
Good morning. I'm very happy to
I got
be
my
here.
okay, so what's happening? Let me get into the comments. Let me get with the people. I feel like I've been with the people all week, and then I
You've
feel like
been with the people.
at the same time I haven't been with the people because I've been off the air. But
No,
it's
you was on the
wild,
air. You just weren't on the air in real time.
correct.
You was on
But
the air though.
you didn't miss a day on the radio. I was like, I can't do both.
No.
I don't know how you
You,
you
you
out
could have
there.
you could have easily done both. You done it, you could have done it, but you ain't had to do it this time. We had you
Well, I mean,
covered.
the what I was you doing a morning show. So if it were mornings, that would be easy. But it was
Mm-hmm.
hard for me to
Mm-hmm.
3 to 6
No, you
not be
couldn't do that
not be in
because
community.
you were
Yeah.
surrounded by hundreds of people, and
Yeah.
then all these people coming who didn't even know we were there, people coming who came to just be in the space. All that energy, it's going how long is it going to take you to kind of sit with it? Are you going to
Yeah,
have time
I
to
haven't
sit with it?
processed. So for people who don't know, we just came back from Galveston, Texas. I don't know if you're still there. Dr. Carr moves like
No,
he
no,
moves
no, no. I'm in Atlanta because
okay.
tomorrow Mariba Kelsey turns 100 years old, so I had to be here for the his party is today. So we are gathering from around the country. So I'll give him your greetings. We
Yes.
I can't wait for you all to meet physically. So yeah, I had to come to Atlanta before I can go back to DC. So
Wow.
uh,
All right. For those of you, I just met this man like 5.5 years ago, but
that's right.
to experience you in these spaces, it's magical. It's
Mm.
otherworldly. It's I don't how you move because I met you in the pandemic, so I thought you were like a sit
Yeah,
down. I thought you were like me because
yeah.
I try to be out in the streets. You be in them streets. I mean, in them streets hard. Oh my God! I said, where is Dr. Carr? Dr. Carr's family's here. He ain't nowhere to be found. I don't know where he out there in the
Yeah,
streets. He got
that's
his
all right. My niece and nephew had a ball. And I got my nephew singing karaoke, and my niece is all happy. All these met these new North Carolina A&T Aggies. So in the fall, she got all these new family members. My brother-in-law, my sister. They just had an incredible time. And yeah, couldn't nobody find me because I stuck around Reedy Chapel and hung out with Anthony Paul Griffin. They brought you the book, right?
yeah, no, no, and he. Oh my God, what a beautiful human being.
Oh yeah,
Um, and
oh
that's the
yeah.
other
I made
thing.
sure.
If anyone's in doubt, we are amazing. We are beautiful. We are so amazing. And that is what the opposition is. Okay, so I'm jumping
That's
in.
right.
I feel like we
No,
have
come on.
because
This is it.
we haven't decompressed. It's like it's been like
No.
okay. So I have this annual, sometimes twice a year event called Healthy Wealthy Wise that I conceived before the pandemic because I wanted a gathering place for us to, plug in, be in spots that people may not see us in hordes. And let me not use that word because we in great numbers. Usually we would go to these places. It's like a handful of us, but when we come, a couple of hundred, it changes, it shifts the atmosphere and it shifts us because we belong everywhere. And so I wanted to establish that first and foremost, and then bring to the table people who have something to offer, gifts to give and feed people, and also treat people like kings and queens because they are, and, walk away feeling connected. Every year it has been magic. Each year it gets more magical. We added Dr. Daniel Black, who does a water ritual meeting our
Uh,
ancestors. He added something even more special this time with a message from for each of us, handwritten. I mean, it was so beautiful, Dr. Carr.
it really
Oh
was.
my God.
It was amazing.
But
Amazing.
every time we go to the water, and the water in South Carolina was special because that was the port of entry. 1 in 5 of us have ancestry that came through those waters. But the Galveston waters, was, man, so we did the water thing, and then we have fun at the end. And Dr. Black sent me a text. I've never been somewhere where you could do an ancestral ritual and karaoke and freaking bid whist and spades at the same time. Like it was incredible. So we just came back from it. I got in last night. You're in Atlanta, but I'm still basking in that because of how special it's so special. I can't even express it. And I don't want to really talk about it. And the reason why I don't talk about it a lot is because I don't want people having FOMO, and I don't really want people to just be curious about it. Do you know what I'm saying? This is not an advertisement. Because I said to somebody, because if you bring somebody there out of curiosity, they can shift the energy in a way that's not right. People who come, they come because they want to be connected to this and they know what it is. It's not a curiosity. This is not.
That's right.
So we had a lot of curious eyes on us as 240, almost 250 Black people in a single file crossed a highway to get to a beach dressed in all white.
To get to the bay, all white, everybody in all white, not one person not.
And folk were disturbed, which was
and silent, nobody talking.
And we couldn't talk. So, what is this? Excuse me, what is this? And we could, Dr. Black was like, don't, you're not being rude. We just are not talking. We are present and we're not going to speak to anybody. You'll apologize later. And that tripped people out. Like, how dare you not answer me? And we were just like, and I was putting my finger up and also making sure nobody got hit by a car, because I also was cognizant of that energy, that negative energy that doesn't want people to gather in peace and love and harmony. And that's wild too. Like, you see people, they're not bothering you. We getting the middle fingers, horns blowing at us,
a lot of horns blowing.
A lot of horns blowing.
You missed your caller. You could have been a traffic cop in another life. Nobody even got close to getting hit. Can you imagine all those people, y'all, in two lines, single file, coming across a busy highway between?
I mean, in my mind, because I physically was, I knew I was putting my body on the line, but I was like, I wish you would. Like, in my spirit, I was like,
oh yeah,
like don't do it, don't do it. And it was a lot of white folk like staring and saying stuff. But there was one lady at the top filming us, which I was a little uncomfortable. She was like, "What is this? Is this a wedding? Is this a baptism? Is this some?" I said, "Yes, yes, all of the above, all the." Yes. She said, "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Oh my God, she was so overwhelmed. And a couple of people, when we came back, wanted to know how they could join unmelanated people, and one lady was like, what? She said, "You can't. This is family. Everybody's related." She said, "Yes, we're all related.
We're all related."
I said,
"But your parents too, but y'all been wayward children, so you can't. You just relax it."
Yeah.
That is amazing. Same thing in which was, well, what did you think about the fact that here we are in noon, at around noontime in historic Galveston, down there at the place where Granger was set up and the U.S. colored troops were set up, and virtually nobody there? What do you think about that?
So it was wild. Sam Collins, Professor Juneteenth.
Professor Juneteenth, our good brother Sam Collins. Yes.
We got in on Monday because I had never been to Galveston. I'd never been to that resort, so I usually do a walkthrough. I come in, but it was like my first time there. I'd sent somebody. And so I was like, let me do this walk just to see. First of all, y'all living in Texas, it's hot as hell. I've never experienced heat like that. I can't even imagine our ancestors. Never. And I've been, I spent a summer in Bermuda. It was hot there. Been to all the islands. That heat.
Interesting.
The heat with the moisture, and forget about your hair. The hairs are like,
nah, you just gotta.
I like braid it back up. I was like, trying to put my afro. My afro was getting bigger and bigger and bigger and more. Like, what is happening? But
that's why we have the hair we have. Our hair is made for that heat.
I was like, everything's wet. I took 3 showers every day. It was so hot, so hot. But I sat in it because I'm like, our ancestors didn't have a choice but to be in this sun up to sundown, and we complained about a couple of hours. So I said, I'm gonna walk with this man. We were out there, so we walked from the pier where the soldiers got off.
Yeah, Pier 21, y'all. If you're ever in Galveston, go to Pier 21. That's where our brothers came in.
And then, he took us to the different markers, and then we walked all the way to the church. It was about a mile and a half. We walked to that spot where literally, the order was not spoken. You spoke it there, but, delivered. And there were, it's now a parking lot with a big mural, and there's a museum next door. We did the museum, which we didn't get a chance to do. And then we went to the church. And then we walked back. So we did about 3 miles the first day. And I
Yeah.
just wanted to see, if people could do it. So I knew there had to be a bus for people who couldn't do it, just so that they can get on the bus and go to each spot. But to be there on that day and it not be crowded, to have but a lot of that might have had to do with Joe Biden showing up as well,
Yeah.
which was, uh,
And we got there just in, hey, y'all, now it's Secret Service, it's every kind of police it is. And somehow Karen Hernan talked her way into the vestibule. Now they doing the sweep. I looked around, Karen is in the church. I was like, how did you even get in the church? I mean, that's a feat that anyway, y'all, Reedy Temple, which well, Reedy AME Church, that's the oldest church. It started in 1848. So it started like almost 20 years before the end of the Civil War. And it was just the same piece of land, but at any rate, they were sweeping because the former president of the United States. Now, we didn't plan that. I was, as you said, when we were all together before we left, we were joking like, okay, this is a special guest you invited, huh? And yeah, but Joe was down there on his way to the church, and some kind of way Karen said, now letting us in. Next thing I know, she passed the red door. Those churches have red doors. She had the vestibule. I'm like, what? And the lady, the sister, the police woman, I don't even know what she was, a Fed, if she was Galveston police, Texas Ranger. She was smiling. I said, look at this black woman smiling in this police uniform. Karen Hunter done talked her way into the church. Anyway.
well, I wanted to see for myself.
Yes.
Ain't nobody trying to hurt that man. But
No.
if I'm being honest, I was a little not happy that he was there that day, because I
Of
was,
course.
it's almost like, thank you, Mr. Man, for making a holiday of a day that shouldn't probably be a holiday. I'm gonna say that. I feel like it shouldn't be a federal holiday where everybody gets to take off work. That's our time. And to shut down all of the streets and to shut down these special markers for people who are there to commemorate and celebrate. I felt some way about that. So I just wanted to look in the eyes of the folk that were standing there and just say a few things. And then I
It,
was
it
on.
was it was necessary. And you know what's funny? He was invited.
I know.
So
And we always invite Remick to the cookout.
well,
I'm not saying he's Remick, but
except in sinners until somebody decided that they want to try to save their child from becoming a vampire. We'll say less, but we wasn't about to invite them in. So, hey man, I guess it was my child. But yeah, isn't that something to be
yeah,
invited? And I didn't know whether or not I didn't stay. We didn't stay long enough there. Of course, I came back because then I realized that I'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, I didn't get a chance. I think was that the sister Lynette Patterson who was the pastor. I don't know if you got a chance to talk with her. I know
I
she's a
didn't get
sister
to
who's the
talk.
pastor. Because she said in the next day's paper that they put us out of our own church. She was kind of joking, but I when I saw her face, I said, "Oh, that looked like the sister that was standing there in the vestibule with Karen." So I'm not. I think it was the sister who the pastor. It's
I
a
didn't
black
know.
woman who's
I didn't
pastor.
know. I
None of us did.
barely.
That's what I'm saying.
I was like,
None of
how
us
the
did.
hell? But again, sometimes we're happy for these people, but again, if we don't get this lesson, politicians are not our friends. They're not our
Yeah.
saviors. Abraham Lincoln wasn't a savior. These
No.
people are resources. These people are folk that will promote your rights. So we have to elect folk, not based on popularity, not based on how they make us feel, but based on what they will do and show and prove. And then we, rinse and repeat and do something different. But, this deification of folk, because, we have to, we're the deities, and I'm not
We
saying
are.
that, but we are gods. I mean, that's in the Bible, the little
Yeah.
g's. But we
Yeah.
all have that in us, and we have to walk into it and demand it of one another. Like, we're the
Mhm.
ones that are gonna take us to the next place. And these people
Absolutely.
are tools,
And
tools
we
and
are our ancestors, as one of the early shirts in this journey that you But we
Oh,
are our ancestors.
can I say
Yeah.
that too? We've been together 5.5 years, and we do merch now. If you're a Nubian, you can get different merch in the store, Knarrative.com. But to see all of the global majority, to see
Oh,
all the actively black, to see all of the Nubia gear every day, people at the airport looking at each other and knowing that they're part of something because of the shirt that they're wearing.
yeah, that's funny. Yeah, it's funny you say that because over the last quarter century at Howard, the students talk about anytime they go home for Thanksgiving or spring break or whatever, they wear their Howard stuff in the airport. And everybody has their totem. We see that. It's not unusual. But when you see certain things, you recognize it. Like I wear a lot of HBCU stuff. I had a Morehouse hat on all weekend. So, people, if I have my A&T stuff on because of my niece, they'll say, "Oh, Aggie Pride," and I say, "Aggie Pride." But that global majority stuff and the actively black stuff and the Nubia stuff, I mean, to see, it was like we said just before we got on the buses, I'm like, I want everybody t-shirt in here. I mean, and then all the other stuff that wasn't in those categories, but was just so beautiful, equally beautiful. I mean, one brother had on a t-shirt with John Coltrane and Albert Eiler, and I was like, man, where did you get that? It was like a replica of the poster where they were playing at the Village Voice. I said, man, where did you get that? I mean, everybody, I said, you got two of the three, man. They called Coltrane, Eiler, and what's my man, Rashad Roland Kirk, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. I said, you got to, where did you even find this? But I'm just mentioning one, like you said, everybody, all the time, every day, and then to be together, moving in community. And I figured it out because, like you said, when everybody went back to the hotel, I stayed around there because shout out to the good brother Kevin, who the brother Anthony Paul Griffin, who wrote The Water Cries, lives around the corner from Reedy Temple. I mean,
Mm.
Reedy A. I keep saying Temple, Reedy AME. So when you called me and said, "Where?" He said, "Oh, I'm over." He said, "She said, you said, oh, you working?" I said, "Yeah." So I ended up staying over there till about probably 7.
In
And
the
what I
morning.
figured, no, 7
Oh,
p.m.
7
But
at
I
night.
can't. Well, about actually 7, closer to 8 actually, because by the time I got back to the hotel. But anyway, I set out to say that the people see this now understood the rhythm of the heat. We got there before the people came out. I
Right.
went
They
back
know
over to
they
where
know they asses shouldn't be out
they
there in
know
the
they
middle of the
shouldn't be.
day. Like, man, I think I wanted
That's
to
what
pass
happened.
out Kevin Brewer. I said, man, no one told me we shouldn't be out here because I play
Right. Okay.
midnight. I
And that's
know,
what happened.
right? Because when you sent the video, I said, oh, they are partying.
They
The,
are partying. They were there, boots on the ground. They did the whole boots on the
yeah,
ground dance. If we had been there then, we probably still
oh,
be there partying with them. Them
correct.
Negroes, and they partying this weekend. See, that's the thing. We were there. Juneteenth fell in the middle of the week. Them Negroes out in the street today in Houston and Gal. Because I came back to Houston yesterday. I'm like, oh, this is where y'all at. It was crazy.
Well, I'm glad we were there because Sam Collins was like,
Yeah,
it's important for them to see such large numbers, and we have 5 buses of folk going to each of these things, and it was beautiful. So I just want to thank everybody who was there, people who wanted to be there and couldn't. You were there in spirit, and
absolutely.
Dr. Black, Dr. Carr,
Mm.
Tiffany Aliche, Amber Clark. I mean,
Tiffany. Yes.
everybody.
Everybody.
Dr. Sories came just to be there. He was
Yes.
supposed to be with Opal Lee. He was like, I chose to come with you. I was like, okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Because he's with Opal Lee
Yeah.
every year. He said, this year I'm coming to be at Healthy Wealthy Wise. So he just
I
flew in
mean, it.
today.
I just can't even. I mean, Dr. Mitchell, Caretha Mitchell, she and her was good to see Caretha. I never seen Caretha in person. This was our first time meeting each other in
Oh,
person.
yeah, she's
All the
been to
people we know
she's
in
been to a
common.
couple of yeah, she's been to the last 2 Healthy Wealthy Wise.
Yeah,
Her husband couldn't come last time. So
yeah.
and then they did a duet at the karaoke. People still
And
mad at
and
me.
if it's, I know it. I was not. By the time I got back over there, y'all was deep in the singing. I said, "Look, let me not come here and disturb this." And the next thing I knew, it was the next morning. I was knocked out because I was like, "Wow!" I mean, of course, people and look, all the people who walked everywhere, who traveled, and of course. you got some powerful friends. I mean, our good brother Yao. We had a couple of physicians, a couple of RNs, just by the organic nature of it. So
I was gonna
nobody,
say, not playing, not playing.
yeah,
I said to
yeah.
him, once again, every place he goes,
Once again,
damn it. No, I promise you,
he
Dr.
did
Nancy,
it in Egypt.
every place he goes, he is called into service. To
Oh yeah,
service. You ain't gonna be
you
a
see.
doctor and not have to help somebody.
You got to. He did it when we were in Kemet. And this summer, in fact, Dr. Kelsey, Reba Kelsey, is coming. She and Yao was a sister in, where were we? We were in Luxor or Aswan, and her feet swole on her. She had high blood pressure. She had, and they went right into action. I'm like, how did you even get? You brought your bag? I mean, what? It's like, now don't worry about that. By the time the Egyptians, everybody was there. They were giving them orders. It's like, nah, you do this, you do this, and so it's just beautiful when our people are together and
And
we
that's the other
bring all of our gifts.
thing I wanted to say, we're in a room full of everybody, technicians and truck drivers,
Yes,
veterinarians and heart surgeons and geriatricians and all kinds of professors, all kinds of teachers, retirees, people with their children, people with their grandchildren, people with their grandchildren. There were at least two people, couples that have
yes,
been together for 35 years, couples that have been together for 12 years, never married, just like every kind of person. And I look in the room, and that's the most humbling thing, because you can't script that. You know what I'm saying? You can't say, I want to do something where everybody can show up. We had 8-year-old,
it's
and we
about
had,
that.
I mean, like babies, basically, who were
No,
there.
no,
And
babies,
and you
babies
can't you can't script it. And it's not like we said no children or don't bring your people just brought their kids. And it was fine.
brought
And it
their
was fine
kids.
because we're kid friendly. But even the mothers and their sons, and the one lady brought her grandson named Malachi. And I said, "Will a land rob God?" And he said, "Haven't heard that before." He was like, he's like
Oh,
six.
that means you ain't been in church because that's how you get
No,
your
no, no,
money
no.
down
He
there.
no, he was joking with me. Like, I hear that all the time. But
Oh,
he was there.
duh, I missed it.
Yeah,
Duh,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Yes,
But and like your nephew stole your face, he stole his grandmother's face.
that he sure
And
did.
I
That's my
said,
mother's grandson
"Oh
for
my
sure.
God." I said,
And
"Look
my
at
and my niece who got to see two little girls who are little track
track runners."
stars,
Yes.
and to see her with them, couldn't, almost it choked me up. I mean, this is what fam,
That's what
that's
I'm
what it
saying.
is. You know what I'm saying?
So when that lady said we are family, that's what it was
Hmm.
like. Everybody felt comfortable and at home. There was an older lady in her 70s. She came by herself. She's on a fixed income,
Mm,
and she
mm.
lost the key to her rental car.
Oh yes,
And
yes.
she came out, her eyes were so, and she was shaking and in tears. And she said it's going to cost $1,000 to get a new key and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, does anybody know where the key is? And so
Look,
I know where the key is. I took it to the front desk. She said the front desk said they don't have it. And so one of my team members like, you're going to find this key. We're going to get the key.
no
They found that
question.
key. They
They
found that.
found
And
that
I
key.
promise you, they didn't. And the lady was like, I didn't know it was in the drawer all the time. She was like, check every drawer. Like, we were not playing. Get that
Not
key. So
playing.
yes, it was that kind of like um responsibility that we have for one another, that lets me know, and I know it every day, but being in the streets is a different vibration, which because you're in there. I sit behind the
Mhm.
microphone, I get the calls, I get it. But to be in it, there's nothing we can't do. We're unstoppable. And they know
Nothing.
it. They
Oh,
know it.
they
It makes them
definitely know it.
uncomfortable. They're nervous about it. They hate it. And they also want to be a part of it.
Of course. That's why Ryan Coogler and Lindsay Coogler and they people got it so right. You stand outside wanting to be in, and you want the stories, you want the spirit, you right. You hate it and you love it, but it's okay. We are undefeated and undefeatable. Uh, I don't think there was a better place to be than Texas on Juneteenth, and I say that you all, um, as we've talked over this last, we're going to be in our 6th year soon of traveling. When COVID shut the world down and we shifted, and we said this was such a beautiful thing, everyone. there at that last moment on uh, Saturday and on Friday rather. And yesterday morning, Friday morning, as we stood there, and Karen is never going to say and even feel the things that were said about her. And when we said, as everybody was assembled there at that last moment, that the beautiful thing about being able to be in a place and be your whole self, or as much of your whole self as you can muster to be, with no ceiling, no limits on that, is that it takes somebody who has that spirit to attract that energy and has the mind to be able to see how those pieces fit to enable it. And I said, there's one person who I know who can do that, and that was Karen Hunter. And everybody was clapping, and she said, "I'll receive that. I know you were uncomfortable because I watched your face. You know it was uncomfortable, and and it was necessary at the same time because you'd never say that." And when we think about that in that context, I know like the last 3 weeks, I was thinking about it on the way back. My niece was driving, and I'm sitting in the front seat. My sister's sitting in the back seat because they're in Houston. And of course, in addition to me just experiencing the surreal moment of my niece driving a car when I remember her running up and down in the grass when she was the age younger than the two young ladies who are themselves in Junior Olympics and running around and winning awards. And she's talking with them, and I'm saying, you were just that little girl. Now you behind the wheel of a car. I'm not even. But as we going back, I was thinking this weekend marks just the end of 3 weeks of a corridor that I had imagined would be the trajectory in 2019 when I told the first year students at Howard that I was going to put together a kind of intellectual CSI tour of the South. And so that never happened and probably never will because I can't contain it the way that it would have been before the world shut down and opened up at the same time. But these last 3 weeks, this is like this third year in a row. It's been that kind of move from move to move. So just in the last 3 weeks, from Birmingham to Atlanta to Nashville to Dayton to New York, Philadelphia, now Houston, Galveston, all that in the last 3 weeks. And again, everywhere in every place, being in the places, listening, absorbing, seeing the connections, seeing the distinctions, listening for the stories of people, trying to be vulnerable and open and clear and be with people because we all matter. And thinking about that even today, if you're watching this on the day after today, which is the 21st of June, today there in Houston, Galveston, the family of George Floyd will be talking about the significance of Juneteenth and what faces us now. And so thinking about the fact that just 5 years ago, when everyone who could be was in the street, and we were all in the street and locked down and in community by the thousands and thousands of thousands, some weekends, even the hundreds of thousands in this virtual space. Thinking about how the world shifted so quickly and then shifted again so quickly. Upside down Bibles and smoke, upside down Bibles held by a madman in front of a church, and that madman is back in the public housing he was in when he was holding the upside down Bible, except this time he's got some sycophants and a secret police and some thoroughly unqualified Gestapo type brown shirts leaders who will shoot you in the street. But thinking about how that creates an opportunity for us to show what we are in this unyielding work of liberation. And riding back to Houston yesterday and then spending a few hours in some spaces I'll talk about in a minute before leaving the city, I thought about how many times we have marked this ritual moment. And for that ritual moment to have begun when the world was on lockdown and we entered that first cluster of days that stretched between June 19th and July 4th. The nice corridor between Juneteenth and white Juneteenth. And I think that it can increasingly become very important as the United States of America is renegotiated. And there's a lot of things that should frighten us, a lot of things that should make us very keen and aware. And there are a great number of things that should make us exhilarated and very happy. Um, Confrontations like what we're entering now don't make me sad. They make me happier than they make me sad because this thing is going to have, it's like you're going to have to face this punk, this bully. And I don't mean any individual, I mean this whole world system is going to have to be faced. But in those early days, June 2020, when we had been going not even 4 months, not quite 4 months, and we had that first cluster of conversations. If you go into the archive and narrative, if you go on to the YouTube page, the Karen Hunter YouTube page, and subsequently the narrative YouTube page, you can find the conversations we had. Those first conversations we had about Juneteenth were session 13, 14, 15, and 16. About a month.
And,
That's what we
and
really.
all of them are also available as a podcast. Those first ones. So
Yes, you are.
you can go wherever you get your podcasts and type in Class with Carr, and those episodes that he's mentioning are available as a podcast. So you can listen, pop in your earbuds and listen.
I know you would never do it, Rob, but and I don't want anybody to get a cease and desist letter for doing this without asking permission. But your face on the front of a t-shirt and on the back, maybe the three words "Let me work" just come to mind when let me cook, let me cook. That shit, let me cook. This is what the young people say when you first said it. Said, let her cook, just let her cook. Maybe let her cook. Maybe that'd be anyway. I just love it. So of course, thank you, Pot. Wherever you find your podcast. I mean, with a I started to say 1,000, I started to say 1 billion, but now with innumerable people out there, innumerable voices, the fact that you had I could say the vision and the foresight, but the the inspiration in that moment to sink an anchor now yields an inestimable power because this was established. All these things were established. And so now that everybody is rushing, you get fired one day, by the night of that day, you're on Substack. I'm loving all these cable and broadcast news reporters who had no courage. And then they say one little thing and now they all out there, rah, rah, you should have been doing anyway. Come on, man.
I'm only popping back in to say, I've said this before. I didn't think how I moved was unusual until I looked around and there was nobody else doing it. And it actually pains me that, and it doesn't take much courage to me to just connect those dots. And if we all did it, because we all have these amazing gifts and talents, everybody, if we just all did that and then welcomed others in who are of like minds and then plugged in,
Yes.
how big is that network? But we've been conditioned to need credit. We've been conditioned to seek fame and likes and, the things that matter not. And if we can just remove ourselves from that desire to be at the center, you will end up being at the center, even if you don't want to be.
Oh my God.
If you just
That
remove
is
the
it.
desire to want to be there, because the
Mm.
truth of the matter is, if you are pouring out of the overflow of your heart, the things that are manifesting in you, and you are giving and giving and receiving, because that's the hard part for me is the receiving part. Because I'm like, all right, yeah. All right, next thing. But as I sat this weekend, that was the most, to me, I had a long conversation with Amber Cabral before she left. And, she just popped in because I said, hey, you come on in. And I said, but I don't have nothing for you. I got a room, but, and then she was like, can I say some things? I was like, yeah, okay. I put on the thing, because it's like, all right, you got something to offer. Let's go.
Yeah.
But she said,
Yeah.
this is the first place she's been in where it's just, I can just see everything. And it's a different kind of thing because she's been to conferences with people like, it's gonna get your autograph or whatever, and they want to take pictures. But she said this was different. And again, we're all in this together, and we're all in this together, and we're all in this together. What is the thing that you're bringing that can help us move a little bit further. And this is the work. And but to your point, the only reason why I popped in,
No,
they
no, this
set it
is
up.
this is a
They set it up for these pick me people who will get in their minds that somehow they're special because they've been picked to be on this camera, and they replace y'all every other year with somebody else, which tells you that you were never special. You were just a
nope.
black face. You were a black face, so you were operating as a black face. You were a minstrel. You were operating in blackface for them, for their entertainment, for their aggrandizement, their money. You were blackface. And now you get to be an individual on these other things. But what were you for commerce now? You're still in that same mindset. I'm seeing these people.
It is interesting.
Yeah. So I'm gonna be quiet for a minute and then I
For a
won't
minute,
be.
huh?
Yeah, because I feel like, unfortunately, because we've been fed so much garbage that we've decided to make into something. We've been eating chitlins for so long and we've made them
Ooh,
delicious.
yeah.
'Cause that's what we do. We know how to season stuff and make it good, but it's still shit in entrails. So
Stop
now it's time
that.
for us to eat the proper meal. And stop eating
Yes.
chitlins. It's okay. Then it's not good for you either. Not
Not
only
good for you.
what it is, it's just not good for you. So we
No.
we are we are learning how to treat one another, and we're learning how to treat ourselves, which is the most important thing. We deserve better. We deserve better of
Good.
the people who speak to us. We deserve better. And I'm not saying I'm the pinnacle, but I'm saying I'm raising up. I'm finding the people who are going to
Yeah, we
tell you the truth, who are going to say it in love. Maybe sometimes, because I don't always do that, but we're going to bring the people
yeah.
who are going to you can trust. And if they get it wrong, they're going to say they're wrong. They're not going to try to
Hmm.
cover up their image for how it looks or whatever, because we're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to misspeak. It's the nature of being human, but we're trying to get it right. And that should be the standard. And we shouldn't accept anything less than that. So I'm
Absolutely.
saying that let's raise the bar. Let's raise the
Let's
bar.
raise the bar.
Uh,
Let's raise the bar. And yeah, and you're showing us people who are aspiring to that and who are doing it. And from Tuesday, Monday, I was in Philadelphia. Shout out to all my people, Philadelphia Freedom Schools, at our annual staff and faculty in Bongi, our training, and now we kick off next week. And then Tuesday, I was on the plane coming there, and what you just described is in fact the beauty of people, and that really is the work of liberation. Is recognizing that we all matter. We are all valuable because we are. And then collectively just raising that. And you're right. I mean, regardless of how we may feel, when we enter these spaces, these social structure spaces that want to commoditize us and use us, and you think, okay, I can flip this. I can do it for this and I can do it for that. I can do well while doing good. I mean, these are the things we tell ourselves. And then you may get off a little and you may help some people at some point, but then that awful day will surely come when if you be yourself or even closer to yourself, they're gonna throw you into another thing. You about to mess up our money. You about to mess up our status. You about to threaten our power. And then you find yourself out, and then there is another form of courage that comes with exile, or at least it presents as courage, but you, add to your point, haven't let go of the possibility that perhaps I can get back on, or perhaps I can duplicate what I thought I had, that status. And it just really does reveal at the end of the day that the thing that will help us be free is the thing as we look in the mirror and as we look in the eyes of each other. The thing that will help us be liberated past freedom, past the concept of emancipation, which I want to talk about for a few minutes today, as we sat there and walked there and stood there and in the water in Galveston Bay, and then in the streets of the Strand district of Galveston, as we stood in the literal spaces where people fought their way out of captivity. What will save us is us, self-determination. This isn't a question of theory. It isn't a question of being labeled a conservative or liberal or radical or progressive. It is a matter of self determination. It is the unyielding work of liberation. It's a constant. process. As I said, I mean, we're sitting there 5 years ago, in between in the marches and being out in the street and organizing and Black Lives Matter and Ahmaud Arbery's dead, and then Breonna Taylor becomes a premature ancestor, and then on Memorial Day weekend 2020, Big George Floyd, a graduate of Jack Yates, John Henry Jack Yates High School, come back to Jack Yates in a minute, becomes an ancestor, and everybody's in the street, and then Juneteenth hits, and we're all in the street, and it's like, wow. And then we're here sheltered in place by the tens and then hundreds of thousands in these regular convenings, like a metronome, week after week after week after week. As I said, 13, 14, 15, and 16, that's the first quarter. We sat down a year later, session 67, after Ajua, sister who brought us together. And Ajua Bachwa asked more cause. We see, you want to come down to the White House and watch Joe Biden sign his Juneteenth bill? Yeah, I'll come down. I want to see it. I'm standing in the back with White House police and security, young brothers and sisters who are cops. And I said, what y'all think about this? And the sister I'm standing next to on the wall in the East Room as I'm watching this, she said, I'm from Texas. This is what we do. And then we all started laughing. We stand in the back of the room. The man signed the bill. Sheila Jackson Lee, now ancestor, stand up here. Everybody, And I'm saying that because being able to share that story and laugh like that in Galveston connects the dots. While the guy who signed the bill is getting ready to go into a little church that he's been invited into, and you see the contradictions, you see the community, but you see Black self-determination, and it's everywhere. And so in session 67, when we, in the wake of that signing, came back and, you know, I think the name of that session we had, session 67, was Juneteenth. Juneteenth's now a holiday. Now what? Now it's federal holiday. Now what? And as you said then what you said today. It shouldn't be a federal holiday. Everybody shouldn't get the day off. Just for us. And I think that really does reveal in our Africana Studies framework the distinction between the social structure, who we are to other people. What is the formation we find ourselves in? What are the political, social, economic formations we find ourselves in? This is why we're talking about race and critical race theory and hierarchy and intersectionality. All that stuff is social structure conversation. How do we navigate these systems of power? How do we acquire power? But that's not a governance conversation. That's why we had to have an Africana Studies framework to help us think about these things in ways that help us recognize what we are already doing. The governance question: who are we to each other? The people working in the White House, standing on the back of the wall, kind of laughing as they're watching something be signed into a federal holiday that they've been celebrating since they were born. The people in the streets of Galveston, as we walked the streets and saw the people, as we were standing on Pier 21, getting ready to walk into town, and the woman and man, the sister and brother, sitting there set up with Juneteenth t-shirts that I'm sure they set up there because it's a nice place, because they have a parade that came later in the day after we had left. And so they setting up, getting early. And who knew that 200 and almost 50 people were going to come walking down the middle of the street and buy your shirts before you could even get. I was just watching the joy on that sister's face, selling them Juneteenth t-shirts. I was getting ready for 3 o'clock. What the hell? Hey, no, y'all can buy. We did the same thing at Reedy Chapel, Reedy AME. In fact, I've got one of the Reedy AME shirts on. This is it right here. Reedy Chapel AME Church, Galveston, Texas. This is the oldest church right here, 1848. Understand, the Civil War didn't start till 1860. And in Texas, that funky criminal, Texas is the funkiest of the states in the funky criminal enterprise called United States of America, because it never wanted to be a state. Texas then and now sees itself as a country, but I'll come back to that. So 67, we talked about it. It's a federal holiday now. Now what? Remember, we talked because that's when uh, Mama Opal Lee blew up the Juneteenth party at the White House. And they had a big Juneteenth party at the White House the other day. I mean, Trump and wait, or they didn't have nothing at the White House. Good. You shouldn't have anything. You're a racist. Your little your little propaganda Barbie that stands up there with them pressed lips and talks about with that cross around their neck that should be burning a hole in their sternum. Hey, y'all do what y'all want, but y'all shouldn't have no Juneteenth. You shouldn't. Doesn't matter who you gonna get. I haven't seen your manservants. Where's Tim Scott and Byron Donalds? Who knows? But anyway, it doesn't matter. When you're a toady, you're a toady. But Mama Opal Lee blew up that first Juneteenth party at the White House. She said, "Yeah, but we don't all get together. We going to hell." And Vice president was standing there like, well, there it is. Yeah, there it is. And what's worse is you don't even know what's to come. In 68, session 68, do you want to be well? We vote 20K on bar right after the Juneteenth holiday. Fast forward another year, sessions 119 and 120. We talking about the 4th of July, white Juneteenth. Fast forward another year, session 171. And then finally, fast forward one final year before now, sessions 223 through 227, we mentioned it, and now we here again. So I'm saying all that to say that for the details of how Juneteenth was formed and a great almost TikTok, day by day, month by month, year by year, of the things that led up to it in terms of the Civil War and Philip Sheridan, who was the commanding officer over Granger and U.S. Grant and all that, and what was going on there. All that stuff is in the archive. It is in the archive, and I write every day now, even if it's only a few paragraphs. And so the beauty of that, as academics write to each other and hope perhaps they'll give a couple of public lectures, all that's been jailbroken. The importance of the work that we do is that it doesn't come from the university out. It comes from everybody and goes wherever. The university is not even a factor. It shouldn't be a factor. Writing in the arcane jargon to each other and Simpsons mildly. In fact, the longer I live, the more that I'm listening and being in community, and I've been doing this now for, as you say, Karen, I mean, 40 years, one way or another. The most of that time as a teacher and a listener and a reader, the stuff becomes almost unreadable. We're not talking about the defamiliarization of narratives of power and the intersectional convergences of it. What are you talking about? Let's go to now, do what so many people did. There, sitting, play some bit with some spades, and work some things out and have a conversation. So this this last journey, these last several weeks, are marking that kind of sustained CSI. And the thesis is clear: be in places, absorb, see connections and distinctions, listen for stories, listen for the people, share. And you see that when our eyes focus on people and get past propaganda, news, entertainment, mass media, and all the attempts to narrate things, you see that people begin to stand. $1 billion enterprise like the Los Angeles Dodgers. I mean, ICE want to show up out there. And it's like, you really don't want that smoke if you come up in this stadium. So y'all should leave. The Dodgers finally found some heart. Y'all told Nessa not to sing the Star Spangled Banner in Spanish. She did it anyway. And you got smoked because you want to act like, you didn't do that. Well, you should stop calling. That's what I actually posted on social media and tagged the Dodgers. Y'all should take Jack Roosevelt Robinson's name out your mouth if y'all want to get scared now. So they found a little courage and told ICE, you can get the hell out of here. But guess what? The secret police, you white nationalists, you hate masks when people try to keep themselves healthy. Oh, but you love it when your punk ass cousins go out there, all five, two of them, these little men that they find, who, as we were talking this weekend about it, I was in the street talking with some people and listening to some people, former federal agents, people who worked in Homeland Security, who are saying they're not convinced at all that any of these people are federal employees, that they're really contractors. And guess what? Donald Trump may be protected a little bit by John Roberts and his friends on the Supreme Court. But y'all ain't protected for ish. Y'all going to jail at some point or not. But the point is this: you got your face masked up because the United States of America in this fascist government is trying to create a secret police. I was listening to Rick Wilson on the Lincoln Project talking about this. I would agree with very little with Rick Wilson politically, but on this, he is absolutely correct. This is straight fascism. You start with the secret police, and if you can get a secret police that masks their faces because they are punks, but all that's going on right now, in the middle of it, Juneteenth, this ritual, this social structure now, holiday, is also a governance ritual. It's connected globally to self-determination. We've talked about that a lot. It is one of the days of emancipation, whether it be the rights of January the 1st, which were the rights that were observed here in the United States beginning in the 1860s, usually around the Emancipation Proclamation, which was just a worthless piece of paper until the brothers stuck it on the end of a gun and rammed it down the throat of the Confederate Army. Nothing means anything without guns in this country. You understand? So one second, let me the the whole process of force is what's understood. As Sam Collins told us standing on Pier 21 as he was standing there. And he said there on Thursday, on Juneteenth, that, you know, the Emancipation Proclamation didn't mean anything. What meant something was that the United States colored troops, who were the majority that came into Galveston Bay, they enforced that y'all gonna stop our people being captive. And it continued, as we'll talk about in a minute. But while it continued, that captivity continued, what we also saw was that paper don't mean nothing without enforcement. And they're beginning to find out these acts of self-determination. These acts of self-determination, people are back in the streets. So what's the good of a no kings rally? What's the good of, well, part of the good of it is convening so that you see other people and you gain strength and understanding that when you just focus and look at them, listen to and be with people, you'll realize that these illusory narratives of power are just that. They are illusory and you don't have to lay down for that. And Juneteenth is indeed a governance ritual connected globally to self-determination, those early rights in Januaries of 1860s and 70s, which is why you see on this shirt, the Reedy Chapel shirt, it says a celebration of emancipation, because before there was a Juneteenth, there was an Emancipation Day ritual. And as is explained by any historian of Juneteenth, Sam Collins, no different in this, it wasn't that people in Texas didn't know. There were many who didn't know, but there were many who did know because they had been in the Galveston newspapers. The white owner of the Galveston newspaper were railing against the Emancipation Proclamation, and the people were on the Gulf. Galveston is the sister city to New Orleans, which means a sister city to Port-au-Prince in Haiti and Port of Spain in Trinidad. It's a sister city in many ways to the Caribbean, Mobile, Alabama. The boats come and go. The captive Africans getting off there, that heat that we experienced just as a moment before we were in and out of air conditioning, that heat that we experienced that Africans could not escape, that we were built for, but not built to be standing in the fields that they stood in for a century. Fields white with cotton. As that hot sun bounced off that white cotton, as you're literally picking it and putting it in sacks. Galveston was the biggest city in Texas. It was the commercial center, not Houston, not Dallas, not San Antonio, Galveston. Galveston, more than a song by Glenn Campbell. Galveston was the port city. It's a sister city in the criminal enterprise of human trafficking in New Orleans. It's the largest port for the trade of enslaved Africans, of captive Africans west of New Orleans, which was one of the biggest ports in the whole hemisphere. Galveston. It was no accident when we left the port. We walking past banks and insurance companies. Yeah, that's what it fed off of that blood, and that act of self-determination is is critical. Texas is a metaphor. We've talked about that, so I'm not gonna go over that line again. But we are in this corridor between Juneteenth and July 4th. And I wanted to spend a second thinking aloud as we did. Well, I want to continue in the thinking aloud that we started a few minutes ago at the beginning when we're sitting here, Prof, thinking about what we experienced. It's very important for me to go places and to be in places and to then share not just what I think, but what as many other people as I was listening to were talking about, so that we become aware of each other and we resonate with each other. That's how we build community. And now I'm writing every day. So there'll be books and articles and write it up. And that's nice for the archive and for people to say, oh, okay, yeah. But if you go back through that archive, what we've been doing for this 5.5 years plus, every session is a book. And thanks to Baba Ken Richards and the work that he did, and thanks to Mama Cheryl Lee and the work that she does, the words on a page and words out your mouth are words. They're all words. But I don't mind converting a fraction of them to print. That's coming. But freed from that jargon and freed from that theory, I'll drop a little bit in so the people who find that as a point of entry can find some comfort in that. But that won't be the way that we normally do it. This is the way we do it. The words are there. But every morning I would get up and go down to Kroger, or as Black people call it, the Krogers, because they usually have at Kroger's around the country one or two New York Times that come in the morning. So I was reading the paper every morning, but I also would pick up the papers that were in the hotel lobby, and then also in terms of the Houston Chronicle in the Kroger. This is the Juneteenth Houston Chronicle. Called you see there, Houston Chronicle, Third Ward. I love this. Third War Heart Beats On. This sister here, Danielle Burns Wilson, is the executive director of something called Project Row Houses. Project Row Houses, those of you who are in Houston know about Row Houses. This is the project that includes the restoration of the El Dorado Ballroom. The El Dorado Ballroom was the heartbeat of entertainment for Black Houstonians for decades, and it was beautiful to be over there. We went over um, on the way back, and on before I went to Galveston, stopping at the bookstores down there. There's a beautiful bookstore down there run by women, Kindred Stories, and I saw a book that I hadn't encountered. If you ever go to Kindred Stories, it's a beautiful, primarily Black women own it, and it was nothing but sisters working that day. And I picked up a book I hadn't seen. This is called The Water Cries. I encourage everybody to get this book, The Water Cries, Uncovering the Slave Auction Houses of Galveston, Texas. This brother here, Anthony Paul Griffin, uh, a lawyer, practiced law for 40 years, then retired, and then began writing uh, history, writing fiction. Very, very, very interesting brother. And I'll talk more about him in a minute. But I picked this book up at Kindred Stories, which is across the street from Emancipation Park. That's the park where John Henry Yates, Jack Yates, who had been held captive in Virginia, and with his family, he had bought his way out of freedom, out of captivity. I actually saw a copy of the book on the life of Jack Yates, written by his son, a couple of his sons, in the library. I'm going to talk about in a minute, the African American History Research Library at the Gregory School. Talk about that because I went there yesterday. But Emancipation Park, they put their money together in the 1860s. They bought that land, and that's where the first Juneteenth was held in Houston, 1866 and 67, 68. All the way through. The churches frame the park. So think of a rectangle with a church on every corner, and then other churches around. They build in these churches faith, ways of knowing, surrounding the spirit space across the street from Emancipation Park. And Stockton had a conversation with a brother who was working for the Houston parks, who was cutting the trees, getting the trees ready, and cutting the grass and everything out there, sweating that good sweat, that good hard sweat, talking about what it meant to prepare the place, and talking about the real estate violence that's occurring in the Third Ward and all over Houston as Black folks are dispossessed. And I'll come back to that in a minute. Just laying some markers down to accentuate the things we've talked about now for 5+ years. Juneteenth was one of the first things we talked about. As I said, go to those sessions 13, 14, 15, and 16. You see the first marker, and here we are in 276. Again, this is all accretive work. It's layered work. It builds on it. So you can go back and get that whole history of Juneteenth, complete with sources. So coming across the street to Kindred Stories and bought some books, and one of them was The Water Cries. Well, imagine on Juneteenth, um, get up, go get the paper, and there is an op-ed. If this is it. It's an op-ed in the Houston Chronicle that uh, column Nick Powell, editorial writer, wrote. Title here: "Tell the Truth. Galveston, your city, had slave markets." Well, guess what? You know who this guy is interviewing? He's interviewing Anthony Paul Griffin, and I'm like, wow. This book, The Water Cries, y'all. What he does is he starts before captivity. Griffin does, the brother. He goes through Juneteenth in great detail. And he's a lawyer. So he's writing, it sounds like Gerald Horn. He's a lawyer writing as a historian, but you see the incredible documentation. He's talking about the fact that, as Karen, you just said, General Orders 3 was not read out. There's no evidence it was ever read out. It was printed up. And some of the leaflets were distributed. Those who could read, like those around Reedy AME Church, could share the information, but the information had already been shared mouth to ear by people who had seen the army advance, who had been told by people who had heard mouth to ear because they were being held captive by people who were complaining about the Emancipation Proclamation and the South losing battles, Texas rallying to be the last place, the last stand of the white nationalists then and now. But then they wanted to regroup, go into Mexico, see if they could make common cause with this funky Mexican government that had been led by Maximilian and Napoleon III. Then there's an execution in Juneteenth, June 19th, 1866, as I've talked about before, ending the French domination in Mexico and breaking the back of the Confederate plans to regroup. Because the Confederacy didn't, the Civil War didn't end in April 1865 at Appomattox Courthouse, where black men, United States colored troops, are cut out of all the paintings and cut out of the early photography because they standing there around that courthouse. And Robert E. Lee is like, there's a time when I could have had you whipped. Yeah, we could blow your effing brains outside in the paper. But at any rate, the point is that those same black men, in terms of their service in the United States military, sail into Galveston Bay. But the war wasn't over in April 1865, as we've talked about many times. The war wasn't over on June 19th, 1865, when General Orders 3 was put out. No, the war continues to this day in some ways, and some people ended up in captivity long after. In this book, The Water Cries, Anthony Paul Griffin talks about meeting a woman who had been held in captivity, his grandmother. What? How old is this guy? Not that old. He's just made 70. He said, my grandma lived to be 104 years old. Said she was held in captivity for 13 years. I'm talking to her in the 1970s, and I'm doing the math, and I'm saying, well, that means you were born in 1868. That's 3 years after the Civil War was over and after Juneteenth. Yeah, because she was held in captivity after the war was over, after the 13th Amendment in December 1865. Captivity continued. Gerald Horne writes about this in his book, The Counter Revolution of 1836, talking about the birth and blood of the criminal enterprise known as Texas. Slavery by another name, Douglas Blackman talking about that generally. But yeah, when Paul Griffin is like, yeah, let's be clear. I mean, Anthony Paul Griffin is like, yeah, let's be clear. And reading the op-ed in the Houston Chronicle on Juneteenth morning, uh, Nick Powell writes, when Anthony Griffin rides his bike through Galveston Strand Historic District, he can't shake the feeling he's seeing ghosts. He's not seeing ghosts, dude. He's seeing ancestors. But that's okay. I'm not going to editorialize. I mean, social structure, you write what you write. He says, in his mind's eye, he wonders 180 years in the past. He imagines the slaves who passed through this thriving commercial corridor in chains, marched from the harbor from ships that carried them across the Atlantic from Africa. There were no slaves on those boats, my friend. There were human beings who were being trafficked. But I understand, y'all used to calling us slaves, so much so that you done trained some of us to call ourselves slaves, even descendants of slaves. No, but it's okay. We're going to work on you. We got the metronome. He goes on and says in his new memoir and history book, The Water Cries, which, by the way, Anthony Paul Griffin says his grandmother used to say that. The water cries, son. He says, Griffin, 70, found that many of the slaves were sold into bondage at an auction house on the same block where a 5,000 square foot mural memorializes that slavery ended here on June 19th, 1865. You should get this book. I'm just putting that out as a kind of a teaser because what he goes through is not just what happened before Juneteenth, not just what happened around the historical events of Juneteenth, but what happened after Juneteenth up to and through the living now. And this book was published this year. So the beautiful thing about this book is it isn't just a memory, it's a testament from someone who is bloodline connected to that spot. And through that spot and through his genius as a lawyer, he reads the entire experiences and brings it right to today. The water cracks. One of the things that when I talked with him, and that's how I ended up, as I was saying earlier, that's how I ended up still over there by the church hours after everybody had gone back over to the spot. I sat with him for almost 2 hours. And because his next door neighbor, the good brother Kevin, Burrell, and thank you, Kevin, came around when we were in front of Bethel. I'm sorry, I keep saying Bethel. Bethel is the oldest piece of land continuously owned by Black people in the criminal enterprise called United States. But as the African Methodist Episcopals are all about that nation building life, just like Quinn, when you interviewed our sister about the book that she just wrote on Paul Quinn, says the AME Church was all about institution building. So when you see that church there, I keep saying I keep want to call it something else, but Reedy Chapel AME Church. We were standing there in front of the church, and I heard brother say, "Dr. Carr." I heard that a lot over the last few days, last 3 weeks. Good to see people. Y'all always come and talk to me. I'm happy to listen. I'm happy to be in community. I said, yeah, brother. So he introduced himself. I'm like, Kevin, I live around the corner. Um, and he put a book in my hand. It was that book. I said, oh man, I just got this book. I got this book from the sisters in Houston. Day before yesterday. He said, oh man, this man, Anthony Griffin, is my next door neighbor. I said, oh really? I said, he must be busy today, man. He said, no, he's at the house. What? He's at the house. He said, yeah, you want to meet him? I said, where you stay? He said, right 2 blocks from here. Man, look, we went down there. By the time we finished, because he did have an event that night. I want to thank you, Brother Griffin. Just a beautiful brother. Uh, we talked about his practice of law. We talked about everything. And I told him, I said, I just started reading the book. But I go through the book and then I start reading from front to back or back to front. But I'm going through the book to get a feel for it. And then I'll start reading line by line. I said, one of the things that caught my eyes, I was looking through the book was you read General Orders 3, the Juneteenth edict, as the first emergence in American policy of all deliberate speed. He said, yeah. So we started talking about Brown versus Board of Education. Why? Because let me see if I can, let me get Ed Cottom's book, because Lamont and I interviewed Ed Cottom and then Sam Collins, Ed Cottom's book on Juneteenth, we talked about a couple of times. You recruited Brother Collins to lead us through the streets, which was a beautiful thing. So, of course, one more time, we've done this 5 years, so we do it just to be consistent. Headquarters, District of Texas, Galveston, Texas, June 19th, 1865. General Orders number 3. The people are informed that in accordance with the proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property. Now, that's what people talk about, that absolute equality. That's what's on the mural that we looked at, that we stood there, where the historical marker is that Sam and his comrades and colleagues with this Juneteenth formation they have willed into existence and worked to get marked there. And it's the sister who was dressed in all white standing there silent, but at the marker kind of allowed us to get a feel for the ritual power of that space. That's where the Union Army headquarters was at the moment. So this involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired labor. Okay, now we work. There was the trick. They put the poison pill in the thing. You're a captive, now you're an employee. Wage labor. Yeah. Are they gonna pay you wages? Hell no, they didn't pay them wages to this day. But even in the wake of this order, as Anthony writes here in the Water Cries, the white boys, the white officials, the so-called town fathers, the business people went to the army, went to the Union Army in the days before General Orders 3 were issued and said, look, we know y'all trying to free these people, but we got crops in the field. We got all this cotton, sugar cane, all this stuff. You can't just let. So what do? They tell them you're free, but watch this. Says the freedmen are advised to remain at their present homes and work for wages. Home, that's your home. Let me tell you something. This may be where I stay, but you done sold my mother, my husband, my wife, my child. I'm looking for them. What do you mean home? How are you defining home? Again, the social, you see what they did? Y'all free but stay. Y'all free but stay. So you're not technically a captive, but we're gonna lock you in this Walmart overnight. Why do you think them business people called Bozo at his public housing at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and said, "Stop talking about sending the ICE into the fields to arrest everybody. Do you understand that we're going to lose all our money because everybody in that damn field came from somewhere else?" So my point is this. Wage slavery, as Du Bois writes in Black Reconstruction, was a thing, is a thing. It ain't as bad now as it was then. Again, if you are suffering it, it is as bad now as it has ever been because you didn't live back then. You live today and you are catching hell. So I'm not trying to minimize that. But what I am trying to say is that General Orders number 3 was a compromise. And as Anthony Paul Griffin writes in The Water Cries, a lawyer writing as a historian, and it's incredibly well sourced and documented because he said, I know that the academics going to say, well, you're not an academic. Let me tell you right now, this book is more thoroughly resourced than just about everything I've read on Juneteenth. Yeah, I know I read a whole lot. But the point is this. You're converting these people into another form of exploitable labor. And now you ain't got to feed them, you ain't got to clothe them, you ain't got to house them. So in some ways, you've improved the condition. And as Gerald writes in the Counter Revolution of 1836, you still whipping people, you still chaining people. There were people held in chains. And so when he says, I knew my grandmother, she was a captive for 13 years. Every one of them years happened after the Civil War during Reconstruction. Understand it wasn't over on June 19th, 1865. And understand, most importantly, that ain't the point of Juneteenth. See, some folks, these gotcha academics are like, it wasn't over. Yeah, we know. And if we didn't know, we're not surprised. And whether we knew or didn't know, you do understand this ritual is not about that. That Black self determination isn't dictated by the confines of a social structure concept of who we are and who we aren't. Let me finish the general order. He goes on to say, as I said, the freedmen are advised to remain at their present homes and work for wages, whatever. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts and that they will not be supported in idleness, either there or elsewhere. Idleness ain't no idle Negroes, which is why when we got to that marker, and Professor Hunter, you said to me, okay, Dr. Carr, get up there and read that general order. Let's talk about it. No problem. I'm very happy to do that. Stood there by the marker, read it line by line like I'm reading now, and every word explained it juxtaposed against the mural absolute equality. And when I came back after I left Anthony Paul Griffin's place, I also ran into some serious XM listeners who had just come from California just because they wanted to come to Galveston and sat there and talked to them. Again, they pass on their love and respect and the ubiquitous directive to keep doing what you're doing. They're saying that to you, Karen. Went back to this church. By then, Biden's getting ready to come, and all the people are outside. And what struck me too, this was the day before Juneteenth. Was this the day before? Hold on, give me a second, y'all. Because I got the papers here. Was this, let me see here. This was the day before. Yeah, here's the Galveston paper. This is the Galveston paper for Juneteenth. Happy Juneteenth, right? Here is Broadway, where Reedy Amy is. They putting up Juneteenth flags all up and down Broadway. Galveston prepares for Biden's Juneteenth visit. Here, just a black worker. Wait, no, it's not. This is a city worker putting up the Juneteenth flags. Now, y'all know Ben Haith in 1997 said it came to him by the ancestral dream and revelation, what is called the Juneteenth flag. This Juneteenth flag is not, in other words, not even 30 years old. But, the red and the blue, for obvious reasons, representing the US, Texas. But I also like to think about Rara and Petro, the colors of Vodun, because it's also the Haitian flag. So I think about the red and blue in that regard. You won't find me wearing red, white, and blue. It's about the only red, white, and blue thing I'll wear. And then, of course, the star, you got Texas, but you got the exploded star in the radius representing Black self-determination. And generally, Juneteenth flags will have this line between the red and the blue on an arc for like the horizon. So you'll see the star rising on the horizon. It's very symbolic. Shout out to Ben Haith, the man they call Boston Ben out of Massachusetts that designed this flag. And shout out, as you mentioned, one of the Black-owned companies, Actively Black, who did a Juneteenth drop. I wore the hoodie when we were in conversation, Prof, you, me, and Dan, when we were sitting there on Wednesday, having a conversation about what does it mean to be free, as you asked us and asked everybody there to consider that question. Again, black owned, in collaboration with them. But I like this picture because this is a white dude. He ain't black, but he putting up the Juneteenth flag. And as we look down, up and down Broadway there in front of the church, it's all these Juneteenth flags lining the street. And so when I came back from Anthony's house, where we had been standing in front of the church, now it's a bunch of people there in the median, in the street, and the Secret Service tells them, okay, y'all got to back up off the church and then go down the street a little bit. So then, okay, so then I walked on down to, and I was going to find a bookstore, Galveston Books, the bookstore in Galveston. So a white dude, me and him had a conversation. I picked up these two books. This is Galveston's Juneteenth Story. I would recommend it. And Still We Rise. This is by a committee. This is the Galveston Historical Foundation. There are a couple of sisters, Tommy Bordreau and Alice Gaston, two black women. One is an educator, longtime educator, retired educator. They also wrote another book I was able to get called African Americans of Galveston. You see their names there on the front, Tommy Bordreau and Alice Gaston. And so what you see in these books is how these Africans have been doing this for a very long time, not only celebrating Juneteenth, but building the institutions. This is the original Reedy's Chapel. As I said, in 1848, the captors in Texas and Galveston gave a plot of land to enslaved people, to captive Africans, and said, y'all can worship over there because, we want y'all to fall in line with our devil god. And so they went over there and brought their ways of knowing, as Delroy Lindo said in Sinners, we brought this from home, and they created something else on that plot of land. That's the land that the church stands on today. Not the same church. They had a fire and they rebuilt the church in the 19th century. So that building is original. But this history of Juneteenth in Galveston shows you Black self-determination. So, my point being that we stood there in front of the mural. Let me show you the mural. I picked this up actually inside the Nia Cultural Center because when I came back over that late afternoon, early evening, around maybe 5 o'clock, left the church, walked back past the bookstore, picked those books up, had the conversation with the guy, then came back over to where we had been in front of the historical marker where we had that ritual moment in front of the mural, and the Nia Cultural Center was popping. I said, that's to your point, Prop. These Negroes know when you're coming out here at noon in the middle of the hot sun to about 4 o'clock, we're gonna get together. So that stage we saw in that parking lot, which used to be the building where the Union Army headquarters was, and we went through all the other stuff. Ashton Villa, where they have every year the Al Edwards Juneteenth commemoration. I saw the good brother, Dr. Travis Armstrong, beautiful Nubian brother. He and his wife, happy anniversary to you all. They spent their anniversary, their wedding anniversary in Galveston. I saw them, asked them when I was walking to Kroger to get the paper. This would have been maybe Wednesday morning. And I heard Greg. I looked up and they was in the restaurant next door to where we were staying. So I said, man, what's going on? Juneteenth. I saw them again. They were over in Galveston coming from the church. So, it's a beautiful thing. So I went over to the Nia Cultural Center. And this is Galveston, 2025 Galveston Juneteenth events. So you see all this stuff. This is where they're going. If y'all want to, y'all can see, you can scan that QR code. I'll hold it there for 3, 2, 1. So everybody can scan it. But if you look on the back, they ain't finished. They've been doing this stuff. They've been doing it since the beginning of June. June 19th, there's Juneteenth, there's the 20th, there's today, the 21st. That's when they're gonna have a conversation, a Juneteenth conversation with the family of George Floyd, the 24th, the 28th, then in July. This is now look at the corporate sponsors. They go to Kroger's. Coca-Cola. My point is that everybody want in on this, but guess what? You can't budge us from the self-determining factor. So I'm in the Neoculture Center. I'm looking at all this beautiful artwork, these books. I'm listening to people. I'm meeting people. I'm sitting there listening outside in that same parking lot that we had been in. By the marker we were all at, Prof. Now they done built a shrine. These Negroes had cowrie shells. They had a watermelon. They had a little Aunt Jemima with her hand up with a basket on her head, like she's straight out of West Africa, the Senegambia, or for that matter, everywhere African women have been. And in the basket on top of her head, they had put a piece of sage incense and sprinkled some other stuff because they done turned it into an object. And I thought about, of course, not Jemima. who she might be named as if she's dressed with that head wrap and the dress. But Yemaya, so like you think that that name didn't come from England, that name didn't come from France, that name came from us, and then maybe this Yoruba. That's what people have speculated at any rate. And I mean, there are all kind of other tokens. There's a little radio in there. All of it with symbolic value. You got stuff from Africa. You got stuff from the Caribbean. You got stuff from Africans in the United States, all around in a shrine, an ancestral ritual shrine that they have built around that historical marker that we have been standing in front of, the 250 of us, not a few hours earlier. And now the parking lot is full. And I look out and I'm hearing the music and they doing boots on the ground. All these black women, these little boys and girls are doing it. They all in the line dance. I'm like, look at this is where these Negroes were. So I picked up this magazine, the this magazine here, Galveston, Texas, Island Soul, Historic Beach Town Visitor Guide. Now, it ain't all black stories, but look at the cover story for Juneteenth. Free at last. Juneteenth marks a 160-year journey down the long road to freedom. And of course, you have the obligatory multicultural kids looking, I guess, straight ahead. I don't know if they're being punished, but they're not looking up. I don't know. I guess that's probably AI generated Photoshop. Anyway, and there's the mural, part of it anyway. Inside, you see the whole mural. That's where we were, right? Beginning over here with Estevanico, who had been captive by the Spanish in the 16th century. You got Harriet Tubman. You got your friend Abraham Lincoln considering whether to take these chains and slap them on some Africans and throw them out the country. He ain't free nobody, friends. Anyway, and we said that when we were reading General Order 3. You know, I eviscerated this man. There's Gordon Granger, good in the crease, so we got to see him hit the United States colored troops. That's who freed. That's who told people they were free. Imagine, here's the scene. Leave it alone, Tyler Perry. You got problems of your own. Leave it alone. Don't make this movie. I know you're going to be tempted because as our consciousness continues to reinvigorate itself, people will come to the political as if somehow that's where they were going all along. There are plenty of filmmakers that can do this justice. I don't know that you're one. By the way, shout out to the good brother Rob Edwards, who they're trying to get a film made on Robert Smalls. I'm waiting on my copy of Defiant, the graphic novel. We in the I interviewed him. We did it on we broadcast it on Juneteenth. So no, yesterday on Friday. So I would encourage y'all to look that up. But you ain't gotta make no movie on this, bro. Leave it alone. The reason I say that is because imagine the scene. You're an African out here in this cotton field. Because they weren't in Galveston proper. They weren't at the bay. It wasn't like a bunch of Africans sitting around or standing around working and here come these black. No, they were out in the fields. Imagine as they spread out with these guns to tell these Africans that they are no longer captive, and more importantly, in terms of keep enforcing that, telling these white boys, you're gonna leave them alone now. They weren't able to do it for everybody. They weren't able to do it for thousands of people, but they were able to do it for many. Imagine that scene as you're looking at somebody who looked like you walking across the field with 50 other people who look just like you, and these brothers all got on the uniform of the military and guns, and they come in and say, hey man, y'all put that sack down if you want or not. But either way, it's your choice. Huh? What? Yeah. Where the guy that had y'all out here, the one with the whip? Or is that him running across the field? Hey man, hey, wait, get the horse. Come here. Can you imagine? See, for all the people who are geniuses and have these revelations, Juneteenth didn't free anybody. Y'all. Don't disrespect your ancestors. Don't disrespect those kids that were doing the boots on the ground dance with the elders outside the Nia Culture Center and in front of this mural that was painted by black people. I met one of the brothers who painted the mural. We stood there, took a picture with him. It's a beautiful thing. Don't disrespect your people. Don't play us cheap. Whatever challenges you have with self-hatred or what challenges you have, kind of underdeveloped insecurity, we can help you with that. Come on out, get your plate. Let's talk about it. So at any rate, this metaphor, this juxtaposition between social structure and governance structure is very important for us to understand because the Juneteenth quarter is a time for us to think about it. So as I said, happy Juneteenth it came on. The third ward, a great article about the third ward. I encourage people to look up the El Dorado ballroom and the businesses that were in that square, including Felicia Rashad and Debbie Allen's father, who was a Howard University trained dentist who had a dentist office there. And you'll get a sense of it. Now, let me just pull out a couple of more of these papers I think is interesting. This was the Houston Chronicle from yesterday. Biden's visit shows Juneteenth's growth. No, it doesn't. I understand this is the white paper. You guys say that, right? So it doesn't show its growth. Now, here they are. Remember when we came up on them in Reedy Chapel? There's the church, and they got, of course, black people dancing because that's what Juneteenth is, dancing. Of course, it's dancing, but it's a lot more than dancing. And don't get it twisted about what else it is. So, but this is the Galveston paper from yesterday, day after Juneteenth. Here's Joe Biden, and it says, "Church celebrates emancipation with visit from Biden." That's an interesting juxtaposition. Next to it, you see city celebrates Juneteenth and forgotten black cowboys. This is where they had the gathering at McKinney Memorial United Methodist Church, and you see the brother there with the Juneteenth flag and everything there. And then as you come down, you see the 46th annual Al Edwards Juneteenth celebration. That's where Travis and his wife were, where they had their thing at Ashton Villa. And then here, one of my favorite uh, representations of Juneteenth, as I've told y'all before, I'm not down with the red, white, and blue, although I like to think about it like the Haitian flag, the red and the blue. No, it's not, but Galveston being a sister city of the Caribbean with the Haitians and everybody else, a lot of Haitians came through. A lot of Africans who were captive in Haiti came through Galveston, like they came through New Orleans, particularly in the wake of the Haitian Revolution. But uh, the the celebration there or the commemoration there, you have the United States colored troops there. They are at the Al Edwards gathering there at Ashton Villa, which is where they say, oh, this is where it was read. And well, you ain't got no evidence it was read anywhere. These rituals, then, these rituals that we've talked about many times before, these rituals really remind us. And in fact, I want to say it might be in the Galveston's Juneteenth storybook. If I can see it quickly, I'll find it. I'll read it quickly. Uh, yeah, yeah. Annette Gordon Reed has a quote in here, but that's not the one. Reconstruction. I think it's in Reconstruction in Galveston. Let me see. Yeah. This is Elizabeth Hayes Turner who says, the war may not have brought a great deal of bloodshed to Texas. Actually, it did. Read Gerald Horne's book. But the peace certainly did. Absolutely. Even more, as Gerald Horne would say. Meaning what? After the Civil War, they figured out how to keep the criminal enterprise going in many ways. The black codes and all of that stuff. But the the question of how we should think about Juneteenth is where I want to kind of go to end up for today. Hmm. When I was standing there in Emancipation Square in Houston, when I was at Kindred Stories bookshop, and then coming to Galveston and going out into the water with Dan Black and 250 Africans dressed in white, and as Baba Omotosho did what only he does in the way that he does it, which is ask us to call those ancestors, to talk to them and tell them what we want, tell them what we need, ask them what they need, ask them what they want. Because again, this is a symbiotic relationship and we are our ancestors. Literally, our DNA is theirs and we are them and they are us. They are in us. And the water, there's the sun went down, following the dictates of physics and the rotation of the earth, the tide rose. But in the moments when we call the names of our bloodline ancestors, and in these last 3 weeks, standing before the grave which holds the physical remains of my father's mother for the first time. She made transition in 1950, 15 years before I was born, there in Cookeville, Tennessee. Her name, Della, so many other names, and that water began to rise. And yes, it was rising, but then when those names were being called and people were talking about what they hoped and dreamed and feared and needed help with, and that water, the waves seemed like they would just come in and get a little higher and lap the ankles and then come up like, wow, it's a very powerful, transformative experience. And to walk there in silence and to come back in silence and then to come back in the space. And as you say, Sister Karen, as you say, Professor Hunter, to have Baba Omo, Dr. Black, have everybody come up and pull out of a bag a handwritten proverb and read it to everybody else. 250 people. And then we stayed in there for a long time after. And of course, the first two people he called up were you and me. And then we had that funny exchange of proverbs. It's like, this is a beautiful thing. That, but that's what it's about. Everybody who was there, and I said this when we were sitting there in our conversation on Wednesday, the three of us, everybody who came in that convening represented countless others who couldn't come, maybe didn't have the ability to put a couple of dollars together to come, couldn't get off work, wanted to be there but couldn't. I'm not talking about people who were just curious, and I'm talking about people who literally would have. We represent them. I said it every time I pour libation. Every time we pour libation, we're pouring for all of the people who wanted to be here in this living moment but couldn't. It's very important to understand that, and that's where I want to kind of end. So coming back with my niece and my sister, who had shared the story of what happened with the elder, with the misplaced keys, because they sat with her at dinner and said, well, just like you said, we're gonna find these keys. They were like, and you ain't got to worry about that. If they talking about the tow truck calling that they got to pay, no, we'll take you back and we'll come back down here and get that car. You ain't got to worry about it. You make your plane. Ain't nobody gonna take a L when we are all together. You are absolutely right, Prof. We cannot be defeated. If we could have been defeated, we'd be dead. One of the books I bought at the Sisters bookstore, Kindred Stories, was this little book called The New Red Book. The New Red Book, a guide to 50 of Houston's Black historical and cultural sites. This is a New Red Book. Lindsey Gray, the recent ancestor Sylvester Turner, who was the mayor at the time this book came out, looked forward. So I had them take me to this place. Man, I got a couple of hours. I want to go here. Y'all take me to this place. This is the African American Library at the Gregory School. This is the glass front they put on the front. This is the oldest school for African people in the city of Houston. Let me read it to you. This planning for what would become the African American Library at the Gregory School began in the 1990s. The school, named for Edgar M. Gregory, a Freedmen's Bureau official, served as the first public school for Houston's Black students. Previously known as the Gregory Institute and later as Gregory Elementary, the school first opened in 1870 in downtown Houston before relocating to the Freedmen's Town community. The Freedmen's Town, that's what we ran up on. So Eden pulls up because we could see the library from the street and I could see it. But as she pulled up the street she's right on, there were these three little white shotgun houses, row houses there. And I said, oh, let me out here. So they let me out and they went on to the house. I got out and walked in the first of the three row houses. Let me tell you right now, when y'all get a chance, Freedmen's Town was where the Africans in Houston set up their governance formation, their Mbangi, set up their maroon village right there. You can spit from Freedmen's Town and hit the skyscrapers of downtown Houston. Just like many places in this criminal enterprise called United States of America, many cities. That was the black part. That's where Jack Yates' house was. That's where the property has been taken from the African people now. Real estate violence, like what they've committed around Freedmen's Square in Houston. But Freedmen's Town, the first of the three houses, I learned 30 seconds after I walked in, is the headquarters of the Houston Freedmen's Town Conservancy and Visitor Center. So if you ever get a chance to go 1300 Victor Street in Houston, please, I encourage you to go. It is it called itself the only post-Civil War National Register Historic District of its type in the United States of America. It is recognized by the UNESCO Slave Roots Project. It was established in 1865. I want this to resonate because in a minute, and we'll conclude with what I found at the school, at the library that's next door to the Freedmen's Town Conservancy. and visitor center. In fact, let me just show you the map. This is chapter 3, Freedmen's Town, the fourth ward. This is what they call the mother ward. They talk about third ward a lot. Of course, these wards, first time I, as an African in the United States, heard anything about the wards of Houston was listen to the Trigger Happy MM Ghetto Boys. you know, shout out to Bushwick Bill and of course Scarface and Willie D and all them. Freedmen's Town is one of the earliest neighborhoods in Texas, settled by formerly enslaved African Americans, otherwise known as freedmen. It was established in 1865 in Houston's Fourth Ward after the abolishment of enslavement was announced on Juneteenth. Don't get too cute with this idea that Juneteenth is insignificant. Ask the people who lived it. That's who we remember on the ritual. It continues and says they walked for miles, some for hundreds, from plantations in Texas and Louisiana with hope of building a new life. The neighborhood developed as residents began paving streets and building institutions brick, consistent with other Black communities. The first things they opened were churches, commercial structures, and schools. I know there are people who would say that there is no Black buying power. And structurally, there certainly isn't a pathway to liberation that will come from somehow seizing the commercial apparatus. It's got to be structural reform. It's got to be policy reform. It's got to be capture of the state. It's got to be transformation and renegotiation. Maybe we're on the verge of this now. But when you start talking about economic self-determination, when you start to talk about pooling whatever meager resources you have in the determination to be self-determining, you're talking about something very distinct from that. You're not talking about being consumers now. You're talking about self-determination. These are two distinct things. And I think they're often conflated and perhaps things get mischaracterized. But let's be crystal clear about it. Do not poo-poo or undermine efforts at Black self-determination, certainly not when you sit with your ancestors. As I sat there and watched them after they danced boots on the ground, there they stopped outside the Nia Culture Center and poured libation and called the Africans and called the Africans who were here and called, and we all called the names of our ancestors just like we had called the night before in the water of Galveston Bay. So we don't make that mistake. Our humanity didn't start in chains. We came here, and those chains were a temporary condition that we struck them chains off ourselves, and then we walked to places like Freedmen's Town and built brick by brick, plank by plank, board by board, the community we wanted. They go on and write this. They say, as I said, consistent with other Black communities, the first things they opened were churches, community, commercial structures, and schools, showing their devotion to spirituality, self-determination, and education, traditions carried over from Africa. That's what they write. And he says, Antioch Missionary Baptist Church was opened in 1866. Antioch, that was the church pastored by, Jack Yates, John Henry Jack Yates, who came from Virginia. And when the man who had his wife and children captive said, I'm moving to Texas, Jack Yates, who was free, said, I got to go with y'all. He said, what you mean you got to go with us? No, I'm going with y'all. Jack Yates subjected himself to captivity so that he, his wife, and their children could be together. And they moved from Virginia to Texas. This man was out of captivity. He went back into it to go to Texas with his family. And then after the Civil War, they marched into Houston and built their home, built the Antioch Church in Freedmen's Town. By the way, Jack Yates' house is no longer in Freedmen's Town. They moved it to Sam Houston Park. That was something I was actually reading about in yesterday's Houston Chronicle, the one I think I just showed you all, if memory serves me. Yep, here it is. Holmes, Holmes, Holmes Tour opens chapters of Black life. And here's two sisters who give tours there. But Jack Yates' house is no longer in Freedmen's Town. It been moved to Sam Houston. Let me tell you about Sam Houston and Stephen F. Austin, Davy Crockett, and Jim Bowie. All of y'all, if there's a hell, you're there now. And if it's not, you should go. and wait on them ice boys with the damn masks on and bozo and propaganda Barbie and all the rest. All y'all go to hell. Sam Houston, Steve F. Austin, all them names y'all wear across y'all chest. No, y'all go to hell. And you move Jack Yates' house from Freedmanstown, relocated it to Sam Houston Park. And if people give tours and it's important, I didn't get a chance to go there this time. I will go the next time I'm there. But my point is this: we are not adjacent to your story, my friends. Let me continue this. I'm going to wind this up in a second. 18, it's a point I'm trying to make. Look at the numbers: 1865, 1866, Freemanstown, 1870, the Gregory School. What are they doing? We're going to build some churches. We're going to build some schools. We are self determining. I got $5. I got $1. I got $3. They put their money together and for $800 bought what is still Emancipation Park across the street from which these sisters then got a bookstore where you can read about all this stuff. We're not going to take an L, friends. It ain't got a damn thing to do with no red, white, and blue. I don't care. I could give a damn about it. Let me continue. He says, they write, throughout the next 100 years, Freedmanstown continued to be a pillar for Black Houston, with its plethora of organizations and businesses like the original Houston. This is its soul food restaurant. However, as downtown expanded, causing gentrification, or what Lamont King would call real estate violence, many sites of historic value were torn down and residents were displaced due to rising property taxes. Sound familiar? Community activist Gladys House, the late Linwood Johnson, and many others devoted their lives to preserving and restoring these buildings. But for several years, many in the city turned a blind eye. Fortunately, the community has never given up on this fight and has continued Johnson's efforts and the efforts of its founders. There is a mural dedicated to Johnson at the Shape Community Center and a historic high school named after Yates in Houston's Third War. My man Deloitte, Baba Deloitte, the Shape Community Center. Remember we talked about that when I was in Houston a couple of years ago. Went by the Shape Culture Center. Spent a lot of time with Baba Deloitte. And of course, Jack Yates High School, across from Texas Southern. That's the alma mater of Felicia Rashad. That's the alma mater of Roland Martin. That's the alma mater of Big George Floyd. Y'all gonna stop playing with Black people. Oh, or maybe you won't. Go on and play. Snatch that crucifix off your neck and make you choke on it. The point is this: this is the school that's behind the visitor center. But before I got to the school, opened that door and two beautiful sisters greeted me. I want to thank them. The first sister was Sharon Fletcher, who's the executive director of the the Freedmanstown Conservatory and Visitor Center, and the whole project. Just a beautiful spirit. I opened the door. She said, "Oh, can I help you?" I said, "Yeah." I just opened the door because I see this is the Freeman. She said, "Oh, yeah, yeah." She came and we started talking. I said, "Those t-shirts for sale?" "Yeah, they came from yesterday," because they having something right today too. So I bought a couple of t-shirts. I'll have those on in the next weeks. I'm rocking all this stuff, man. And then the other sister came in who showed me that house and the other two houses. My new friend Terrell Jackson Owens. She's the visitor center manager. When y'all go to Freedman's Town, y'all go in there and ask for those sisters. And I loved it because Terrell took me through the other two houses. They have a beautiful exhibit up. Beautiful exhibit that they're calling Afrofuturism, but it's convening of poets writing about Freedman's Town and about Black Houston. But the poets aren't all of African descent. And the ones who are of African descent aren't all from the United States. I saw Yoruba, I saw Senegalese, I saw Kiswahili speaking students, poets from Tanzania. And while we were there, the sister who is the communications director, she Ethiopian. She came in, we started talking. It's a beautiful thing. The descendants of slaves, I want to be very clear to everyone, because again, this is a conversation I had when I was in New York Monday before last. Please, solidarity politics. The exhibit that Terrell took me through showed how each of the Vietnamese, Jewish, Muslims from Afghanistan, Muslims from Pakistan, poets on the walls, all of them well accomplished. The person who convened it is a poet laureate, convened these poems about what it meant to grow up in segregated Houston when they said everybody who is not white got to go with them Black people. So if you were a Jew in Houston, ain't had no money, and even if you did have a little bit, you weren't folded in with the whites. So guess what? Your ass down there in segregated Houston with the and then Black people was like, come on. You get your hair did, you get your hair fixed. A picture of this sister's mother, who is from Tanzania, getting her hair fixed in the with a black woman, getting her perm, getting her hair did in the black beauty shop in Freedmen. Y'all gonna stop playing with black people. And I'm tell you right now, y'all some of them people don't like us. Your mouth, shut it. Your ears, open them. Your eyes, open them. Spend some time with your ancestors and stop being stupid. Stupidity is a curse. It is a sickness. And guess what? There is a cure. It's called knowledge. That's how we're going to get out of this. So she walked me, and as we're talking, we're getting to know each other a little bit. She's asked where I'm from. And I said, where you from Buffalo. I said, Buffalo? Oh, y'all got one of the oldest Juneteenths outside of Texas. Man, I used to go up there. She said, you know about that? She said, I be telling them. I be telling them. Terrell got all excited. She said, I be telling them about that. I mean, we had Juneteenth. I said, yeah, yeah. I said, I've been at Juneteenth in the fruit belt. Buffalo, New York got a section of the community. Again, real estate violence been committed there too. The black community in Buffalo. Remember Cup Foods. We think about the people who were killed there. The fruit belt is where you have streets in Buffalo named after fruit trees. She said, "Oh, I grew up on Mulberry." I said, "What?" I said, yeah, she said, "My mama every year helped direct the Juneteenth in Buffalo." I said, "I must have met your mom. What's your mama name?" She said, "My mama name Falabi Miller." I said, "Oh yeah, Mama Falabi, the Africans of Buffalo, Juneteenth." Oh yeah, somebody just put thank you in the Mbangi in the Nub on the Nubia side, Gil Scott Heron's poem for Comrade Jose Campos Torres, ancient bloodline comrade. Exactly. Our unity is there. Read your Owens book, Black and Brown. But again, it ain't there unless we remember and act accordingly. So at any rate, let me continue. As I keep saying, I'm gonna wind up. So I'm in this now. She walks me. Therese walks me to the library and the school, which is right next to the third of the three houses, because the exhibit is in house number 2 and house number 3. It was supposed to close the 7th of June. They said they're gonna keep it up through Juneteenth. If you're around Houston, go down there today, tomorrow. If you can't, go and see it. I'm picking up books along the way. This is an excellent book right here, The Yellow Rose of Texas. This lady wrote a book. It's like the third book I have on this. Laura Marie Bernard, The Yellow Rose of Texas, who is a black woman, by the way. There's the Yellow Rose of Texas. Y'all know their name, right? This is about a woman who was from New York who ends up going to Texas because they said they're going to build a free black community in Texas. And then the racists, of course, get caught up, and Santa Ana and the Mexicans is like, y'all gonna stop. And then you having the war between Mexico and Texas, of course, the so-called Texas Republic, and she gets caught up in it. She's called a hero because they say that she delayed Santa Ana, and then they made up a story about her beguiling him with sexual advances or whatever. All that's a myth, all that's a lie. But there was a real woman named Emily D. West. I'm gonna say any more about that. It's just a footnote. Get this story of Emily D. West, the Yellow Rose of Texas. So she drops me off to Rez. And thank you, Terrell. I mean, not Therese. I keep saying Therese. Thank you, Terrell. Terrell Jackson Owens. Thank you, Terrell. Thank you, Sharon. Sharon Fletcher. The sisters who run, again, these black women, man, are magic. I'm just telling you right now, we know the black woman is God. When I went to the African American History Research Library at the Gregory School, they had a massive exhibit. They have a massive exhibit, permanent exhibit on the first floor. The top floor is research library. So I went up there and posted up. Met a couple of brothers from Harvard who were actually getting their degrees in architecture, graduate students who I met the first time when we were at the ritual at the Juneteenth sign outside the Neocultural Center. And then I saw them again in Houston. They had come now. They gonna go around Freedmanstown, go around the Freedman's Village and all that. So okay. So at any rate, but that first floor is the history of Black people in Houston. And you see John Henry Jack Yates, you see the schools, you see the churches, you see the creativity. They organize this exhibit on the Africans who were descended from captives, who were descended from people who were not captives. Did not your ancestors have ancestors? They organized this whole exhibit by the principles of Kwanzaa: faith, creativity, cooperative economics. Under the cooperative economics, this is where they put the schools. This is where they put the fraternal and sorority formations. This is where they put the teachers. Man, to see Phyllis Wheatley High School, to see Jack Yates High School, the second school in Houston to be a public school after the first one, to see the history of the Gregory School, to see the standards, to see them talking about the churches, the first of which was built in 1865, which means what? It is 48, 58, 60. It's 17 years younger than this church in Galveston. Is it about Christianity? As a
A poem
threshold, as a
for
point of
Jose.
entry. There he is. As we can end with that. In fact, we can end with that. In fact, let me tie this up at the end. I'll end it with this. That's a good place to end it. It's good to hear Gil Scott here and there. The point I was going to make only there is that African people didn't wait on anybody to tell us we were free. Juneteenth is a moment for rich. It's not merely a day marking a moment in the permanent U.S. Civil War, but it is a living ritual of governance. It's a living ritual of memory and self-determination that challenges these toxic mythologies of American freedom. This period between June 19th and July 4th should be viewed as a time when we read Africana governance formations, our schools, our churches, our formations, all of that against contemporary social structures that seek to oppress and harm and resist human possibility. Juneteenth is a powerful living ritual of African self-determination. It remembers, it reiterates freedom as a way of knowing, as a set of ways of knowing rooted in self-governance and collective memory. That is in very stark contrast to any notion that we will now enter on July 4th. The Big Boy birthday parade was a joke. I'm sure they're going to come back around July 4th with some more BS. But I'm going to tell you right now, in these last 3 weeks, whether it be in Birmingham with AC Gaston and them, or coming back through Nashville again, or being in Atlanta over by Dr. King's house, or coming back through Dayton with Martin Delaney and Paul Dunbar and all the communities there, or coming to Galveston and standing in Galveston Bay, and then standing where those black soldiers got off, and then seeing these Africans today in those rituals, and then coming to Houston and seeing how they built and then gave us something that not only we should be proud of, but that we must now remember as we move forward. The message is clear. The message is clear. We have everything we need. So I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop with it. And thank you again, Prof, for this week. I'm serious. That wasn't a cherry on top. That was the thread that tied it all together. I cannot thank you enough. Not just for me, but for everybody. I really want to say that. Thank you. And for these last 5.5 years and for what's coming next. It takes a spirit. You can't fake that. It can't be faked.
I'll say you're welcome. However, and the reason why I'm not humble. Amber talked about humility. I'm not like, oh,
Mm,
no, no, no. But I do expect this of everyone. I do expect it of I expect it of everyone. And I get to sit with you guys. I'm watching you and Dr. Black. Most of you who were even at Healthy Wealthy Wise weren't in the hallway when Dr. Daniel Black spotted a piano and jumped up and we had church, and it was so impromptu. And it's like, again, the gifts, the talents, and then y'all was singing and harmonizing, and then here come Miss Willa with her beautiful little voice.
oh, she did it.
Oh my God. I felt like
Mm.
this is a concert. I couldn't have paid for it. I've been to concerts. This was one, there's not enough money to pay for it, but it was just in the spirit of like, we're together. And I see it's possible. So I get super frustrated with our lack of imagination, with this, what they won't let us do, with this, we can't do X, Y, and Z because they won't let us. Who's they?
Who is they?
You
Yes,
know,
ma'am.
who's
Teach it.
stopping you? Oh,
Teach.
how they won't let us be free. Well, who's stopping you from being free? Freedom is your birthright. You were born free, as free as the wind blows. So I like, why are we doing anything other than that? So I just, being with you guys, and I'm the family that we get to choose, and we get to
Yes.
choose our family. We get to choose our friend. We get to choose. We have a choice.
Yes.
We have a
We
choice.
have a
Our
choice.
ancestors may not have had a choice, and even them not having a choice, figured out how to hijack boats, how to escape, how to come back and get more people with no choices.
Yes.
Apparently, no right, no vote, nothing. Figured out how to become maroons in certain places and mountains, not just in Jamaica, but in the United States. Negotiated their own
Mm.
freedom in places like Haiti. Like
Come on.
What are we
No,
doing?
that's the framing. You just framed it. There it is. Who is they and who are we? We know what we are because we know what we've done. We know what we've done. It's important, and when we do that, we win. I mean, don't go anywhere. I was looking at today's New York Times, and you see, first of all, y'all got to bring that man. You got to let that man go. This man, you know, locked up for no reason. You say, well, that doesn't matter. It does matter. The more people you get together, the more they can't do to any of us what they want to pretend like they can do. All of it's
I'm
there.
gonna say that us being out there 250 strong in a
Mm,
hostile environment, hostile
mm,
in the night
teach.
with we ain't have no weapons but each other. And
Mm,
I promise you, it instilled so much fear in folk that they were struggling to figure out what to do with themselves. Just our very presence in those numbers. Imagine that times 1,000,
mm,
a million, because we
mm.
have those numbers, right? We could just get it
Yes.
together. We ain't got to be best friends. We ain't
Nope.
even got to like each other too
Nope.
much. But damn it, we got to get this part right, because this is the thing that they cannot defeat.
Exactly. Thank
So
you,
I,
Prof.
I thank you. You
Ooh,
thank me.
thank you.
We thank each
You're
other. But I
welcome.
think
We thank
everybody
each
that
other.
showed up, because none of this happens if people don't show up. And
That's
people are
right.
showing up. We may
That's
not be
right.
out in the streets putting our bodies on the front lines of a war we didn't start and probably never ended.
That's right.
We've been in a cold civil war since the Civil War, whether you
That's
admit
right.
it or not. And in a war, you either are for or against. You can't sit on the sidelines.
It's two sides.
The war in heaven cast out a third of the demons. I'm sure most of them demons were
Ooh.
like, I'm just waiting to see who wins. I ain't for either side. Both sides, two wings, same bird. I'm gonna
Come
wait to
on.
see who wins. So
Come
so
on.
when God won, he was like, "Oh, you Negroes are gonna get out too, or whatever they were." I'm imagining
Sorry. That's
everybody
right.
was black. Everybody was black in the beginning.
Everybody was black. And some of us black on black. No question.
So all y'all go.
Oh,
They were like,
yeah.
"Wait a minute, I
Yeah.
went with Satan." No, too bad. So you either for it or against it. You don't have an opportunity to sit on the sidelines. This ain't them times. You will be
Nope.
spat out because you were neither hot nor cold. Go ahead and do that. Do that and see
Lukewarm.
what happens. So I'm picking a
Mm.
side. I'm siding with us.
You and me both. You and me both. Love you.
I love you
And
too.
see everybody Monday night in office hours, as we say,
It
inshallah.
is.
And
Okay, sorry. Let me
we end with our
I
brother,
said
the
I
good
wasn't.
Gil Scott Heron.
yeah, we're gonna hear him. I'm sorry. I in the background, just so I apologize for popping in.
No,
I
that
know
was
I had
great.
clicked, there's a thing you click in the settings, to be able to upload things without it, so it's upload automatically. And I know I had unclicked that. I don't know who reclicked it because a lot of people use this thing. So I was like, when that happened, I was like, damn
That's
it.
all right. No, that's good because listen, this brother here, we take our hat off to all the artists. I didn't mention you all. Maybe another time I'll tell you about. They also had an exhibit at the library on Black music in Houston. Archie Bell is from Houston. Archie Bell and the Drills, of course. You saw David Fathead Newman. It was all beautiful. Gil Scott Heron. That's a son of Africa. His father Jamaican, so I guess he wouldn't get reparations according to some of these narrow-minded people.
Oh, all right.
Mama,
Just for the
Chicago.
just for the record, just for the record. And I'm very clear about this. They matter not at this point. Again, we know what that is. So let's just,
Sure.
hold it up to the
No,
light.
that's true.
All right. It
That's
ain't
true.
for, then I'm not speaking that into existence. They don't matter enough to even raise their name. Like we give life when we speak their name.
It's
Like
a good point. I never want to leave anybody behind. That's maybe
that's
a
all
weakness
right.
of
But
mine.
many will be left behind, Dr. Carr. Narrow is the road that leads to salvation. Few will travel it. It's okay. We pour in the water. You drink it or you don't. Here it is. What did Jesus say? The man wanted to be healed. He said the water's right there.
The
Well,
water
you
is
could
right
have
there.
sat on the side of the water all this time. You could have just rolled your little crippled ass into the water
About that.
and got healed. But you didn't. It
How
was right
about
there.
that?
So we're gonna keep pouring
That's
the
it.
water. You come or you don't. We don't need everybody. It's all, and I'm very clear. If I got clear this week, we don't need everybody. 250, we good with 250.
We
You know,
good. Yeah.
let
I
them
can't.
people, let them people be. Let me just say this. Let me remove Gil Scott Heron for a second. Because as you were talking, I was thinking about this. Once you have painted yourself into a corner and
Mm,
it's your commerce,
mm, mm. Hmm.
can you roll it back? You know, like even the Juneteenth thing. Like once we've painted ourselves into this corner, can you put the genie back in the bottle? So people have painted themselves into a corner. They've made money off of it. They've built a profile around it. They have a whole movement. They got the T-shirts to prove it.
That's true.
And it's wrong.
That's true.
Who
That's
has the
true.
courage to say what I have done is wrong? I haven't seen that yet. This thing that I've created, this whole movement that y'all have invested in, it's wrong. Who's going to stand in that and say that? So I understand the doubling down and then the getting people to fight for it, because to admit that is to say everything that y'all been doing for the last several years has been just nonsense. Nobody's going to sit in that. So let the people who hear, let them come, drink this good water. It's clean. Get healed. And if you don't, but get the F out the way, because I promise you, you get in the way of this bullet train, you will be run over. I will guarantee that. So let them stand in the way. Come on.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. We can agree to agree. Let's agree to agree.
All right. I agree with you. I love you.
Yeah. Love you too.
All right.
That same here.
A poem for Jose Campos Torres. I had said I wasn't going to write no more poems like this. I had confessed to myself all along, tracer of life, poetry, trends, that awareness, consciousness, poems that screamed of pain and the origins of pain and death had blanketed my tablets, and therefore my friends, brothers, sisters, in-laws, outlaws, and besides, they already knew. But Brother Torres, common ancient bloodline Brother Torres, is dead. I had said I wasn't going to write no more poems like this. I had said I wasn't going to write no more words down about people kicking us when we're down, about racist dogs that attack us and drive us down, drag us down and beat us down. But the dogs are in the street. The dogs are alive, and the terror in our hearts has scarcely diminished. It has scarcely brought us the comfort we suspected. The recognition of our terror and the screaming release of that recognition has not removed the certainty of that knowledge. How could it? The dogs, rabid, foaming with the energy of their brutish ignorance, stride the city streets like robot gunslingers and spread death as night lamps flash crude reflections from gun butts and police shields. I had said I wasn't going to write no more poems like this. But the battlefield has oozed away from the stilted debates of semantics, beyond the questionable flexibility of primal screaming. The reality of our city, jungle streets, and their Gestapos has become an attack on home, life, family, philosophy, total. It is beyond the question of the advantages of didactic niggerisms. The motherfucking dogs are in the street. In Houston, maybe someone said Mexicans were the new niggas. In LA, maybe someone said Chicanos were the new niggas. In Frisco, maybe someone said Orientals were the new niggas. Maybe in Philadelphia and North Carolina, they decided they didn't need no new niggas. I had said I wasn't gonna write no more poems like this, but the dogs are in the street. It's a turnaround world where things are all too quickly turned around. It was turned around so that right looked wrong. It was turned around so that up looked down. It was turned around so that those who marched in the street with Bibles and signs of peace became enemies of the state and risk to national security, so that those who questioned the operations of those in authority on the principles of justice, liberty, and equality became the vanguard of a communist attack. It became so you couldn't call a spade a motherfucking spade. Brother Torres is dead. The Wilmington 10 are still incarcerated. Ed Davis, Ronald Reagan, James Hunt, and Frank Rizzo are still alive, and the dogs are in the motherfucking street. I had said I wasn't going to write no more poems like this. I made a mistake.